Senator Marcoleta, what is your pleasure?
Just a quick reaction, Mr. President, on the manifestation of Senator Pangilinan. In the exercise of the Supreme Court's judicial review, wala po siyang dinidefeat doon. Hindi niya po kinukuha yung sole power of the Senate to try and hear impeachment cases. Hindi rin po niya kinukuha yung exclusive authority ng House to initiate impeachment. Dito po sa desisyon na ito, kung kinakailangan ulitin po o ulit-ulitin pa, ang sinabi lamang po ng Supreme Court, yung process, yung procedure hindi natupad. Ang dami po niyang hiningi, kagaya po ng binanggit ko na, ayaw pong ibigay. Yan naman pong mga tuntunin ay hindi naman po sinunod. Katulad nga po nung immediate referral, yung pag-refer sa Committee on Justice, yun pong pag-include sa order of business at pag-archive, mali din po sapagkat hindi naman po 10th session day yun 11th session day. Katakot-takot na paglabag po ang aking pong inihayag sa hapong ito. Wala naman pong gustong magpatibay at o kaya sansalain o kaya sabihin na mali ang aking sinasabi. Andito po yung kopya ng order of business na pinagbasihan ng Solicitor General na kung saan sinasabi po niya na yung 4 na impeachment complaints in-include daw po sa order of business. Tingnan po ninyo, wala kahit isa. Ang ginamit po nila ay journal, hindi po yung order of business na kung saan ginamit lamang po na additional reference of business. Ngayon po, yung cooperative pact na sinasabi natin, hindi rin po pwedeng mangyari yon sapagkat ang pinakabasihan po nun ay equity and fairness. Paano po yung fairness dito? Sari-sari nga pong violation, kaya nga ang paghahanilin tulad ko na nga, parang nagsaing ng kanin, talagang hilaw po Bakit ipipilit natin? Ang alternative lang po, Mr. President, gawin po natin na tama. Iluto po natin ng tama para hindi tayo magkahirap-hirap dito. Isip-isipin po ninyo, sinasabi ng ating Constitution, isa lamang pong impeachment proceedings ang pwedeng i-initiate sa isang opisyal ng gobyerno at hindi po pwede ang 2 beses sa loob ng 1 taon. 4 na beses po ang ginawa nila. At kunwari, in-archive po yung 3 para lamang palitawin na isa lang ang nabuhay. Nasaan naman po yung katuwiran? Kung sarili pong tuntunin na ayaw pong sagutin, ayaw pong talimahin, pagkatapos ipipilit po natin sapagkat nag-MR sila, ano po ang kasaysayan ng MR? Sabi ko nga po, napakasimple po nung 1-year ban rule ng Supreme Court. And the Supreme Court is not even obligated and expected to conduct a microscopic, a forensic and scientific scrutiny of this provision where the pertinent language and the relevant meaning is as clear as daylight, Mr. President. Ano po yung gagawin? Hihintayin po ba natin kung ano ang magiging kalalabasan po ng MR na sa akin pong palagay, hindi po speculation, sabi ko nga po. Unanimous decision and bank decision ab initio unconstitutional, violative of due process, immediately executory. Sino po kaya kahit isa man lang na miyembro ng Korte Suprema ang magtatangka na i-reverse niya yung sarili niya? Yun po yung speculation dito. Ngayon, nakikinig po ang taong bayan, Mr. President. Nakadepende po ba ang aksyon natin? Doon po ba nakahang ang gagawin natin sa isang motion for reconsideration na sa aking palagay, matibay po ang aking palagay sapagkat this is borne out by my experience of more than 20 years of legal practice, Mr. President. Yang ibig lang sabihin nung immediately executory, sige, pwede kang mag-file ng MR. But you are wishing for the moon. Sumusuntok ka sa hangin. Yun po ba ang basihan natin? Kaya hindi tayo makapag-desisyon, Mr. President? Sana mayroong mas matibay sanang desisyon. Meron sanang mas matibay na katuwiran. Hindi yung pong nakasalig po sa hangin. Nakasalig po kung puputok ang bulkan o hindi. Hindi po yata gano'n ang gawain ng Senado, Mr. President. tinangka ko na nga pong i-amend. Kung ayaw po ninyo yung motion to dismiss, any other language that will put to rest this issue in obedience and in complete respect to the last word of the Supreme Court, it being immediately executory, Mr. President.
What is the pleasure of Senator Aquino? I saw him raising his hand earlier. Senator Aquino seems to be yielding to Senator...
Yes, Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Lacson, Mr. President?
Thank you, Mr.
With the
President.
permission of Senator Aquino, Senator Lacson is recognized.
Thank you, Mr. President. Gusto ko lamang pong itama ang misimpression that may have been created by the interpretation of the Honorable Marcoleta do sa Section 135. Sabi niya, yung supplementary application of the rules of court. Basahin ko po yung Section 135, Mr. President. If there is no rule applicable to a specific case, the presidents of the Legislative Department of the Philippines shall be resorted to. And as supplement to this, the rules contained in Jefferson's Manual, Riddick's Precedents and Practices and Hinds Precedents. Wala naman po ako nakita doon sa enumeration na rules of court. Di ba po sabi ng mga abogado, di ba yung expressio unius est exclusio alterius. What is expressly included excludes all others. So wala naman pong rules of court. Kaya gusto ko pong itama yung medyo hilaw pong interpretation ng ating Honorable Marcoleta. Maraming salamat po, Mr. President.
Noted.
Mr. President, may we recognize Senator Bumalik has been waiting for his turn to interpolate the gentleman from Tarlac.
Senator
So moved,
Aquino
Mr.
is
President.
recognized and may proceed.
Maraming
The
salamat.
gentleman, allow it.
Maraming salamat, Mr. President. This is a manifestation, not an interpolation, Mr. President. At kanina pa ako nakikinig.
The gentleman may proceed.
Marami po sa mga puntong nabanggit na ng mga kapwa nating senador ay sumasang-ayon po tayo at tama, no? Napag-usapan na po ang independence ng Senado, kung gaano kahalaga ang papel na ginagampanan natin sa ating bansa, sa checks and balances ng ating gobyerno. At alam rin naman po ng mga kasama natin na sa caucus, sinabi ko rin po na ang posisyon ko ay dapat mag-convene ang impeachment court at doon magdesisyon kung ano ang mga susunod na hakbang pagdating po sa impeachment case. No? That's known to everyone. I've said that in the media.
Thanks, Senator Bam, for his manifestation. Totoo nga po na yung binasa niya sa Article 11, Section 3, Paragraph 4, na sinasabi nga naman, in case the verified complaint or resolution of impeachment is filed by at least one-third of all the members of the House, the same shall constitute the articles of impeachment and trial by the Senate shall forthwith proceed. Ngunit, Mr. President, this cannot be applied in isolation of paragraph 8 na nandito rin po sa the same section 3, article 11. Ang sinasabi po sa paragraph 8, the Congress shall promulgate its rules on impeachment to effectively carry out the purpose of this section. Kaya po ang sinusunod ng House dapat yung rules of procedures in impeachment proceedings. Pero kagaya po na sinabi ko, imbes na sundin po nila, sila po yung gumawa nun eh. Hindi naman po nila sinunod. Kaya po ang nangyari, pinagsabihin ng Korte Suprema, ganito ang pag-file. Nagbigay nga po ng guidelines. Pangalawa po, yung kanyang sinabi na nakapag-umpisa na po kayo eh. Kanina po, kinwalify ko yun before I proceeded in my speech. Sabi ko po, the initial proceedings conducted by the Senate of the 19th Congress were not formally carried over into the Senate of the 20th Congress. Wala po talaga eh. I cannot recall, sabi ko nga, and there is no action taken by this chamber, Mr. President, sapagkat ang alam ko, all these proceedings were already deemed terminated at the expiration of the 19th Congress at noon of June 30, 2025. And they cannot be miraculously bring forth to life. In this Congress, where both of us now belong, because this Congress is of different composition. Yun lamang po ang qualification doon,
Quick,
Mr.
quick
President.
rejoinder, Mr. President.
Senator Aquino is recognized.
Yes, Mr. President. Babanggitin ko lang po yung isang na banggit ni my co-gentleman from Tarlac, Senator Marcoleta. Mr. President, may Section 4, may Section 8. Di ba? Ito po ba'y meant to reflect each other or not? Maganda pong matanong yung mga framers of the Constitution. Sila po yung nandoon nung nabuo po ito. At malalaman natin yan kung meron pong oral arguments. Kung ibubukas po ang mga argumento sa publiko, pwede po magsalita yung framers of the Constitution, at doon po, sa posisyong yon, malalaman natin ano ba talaga ang intensyon ng mga gumawa ng ating Constitution. And Mr. President, pwede pong mangyari yon if we are able to table this matter and allow for these oral arguments to happen. Mr. President, hindi po ba maganda rin kung ang Senado mismo magsama-sama at magsabi sa Supreme Court, baka magandang magkaroon ng oral arguments dito po sa kasong ito. Yun lang po, Mr. President. Thank you.
Mr. President. So
Majority
we can
Leader.
continue, Mr. President, with the list of senators wanting to interpolate and make a manifestation. At this juncture, Mr. President, may we recognize the distinguished gentleman from Isabela and Davao, Senator Rafi Tulfo, for his manifestation. So move, Mr.
Senator
President.
Tulfo is recognized for his manifestation.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is not an interpellation, but a short, very short manifestation. In line with what Senator Pia Cayetano said earlier, that we can be creative in our motion today. And correct me if I'm wrong, if I've heard it right, what Senator Pangilinan from the minority said, that we're not defying the decision of the Supreme Court. So may I propose that instead of dismissal, we just dissolve this impeachment court? Because in the first place, per the decision of the Supreme Court, sinasabi na wala naman talaga tayong jurisdiction over dito sa articles of impeachment. So mas maganda siguro, i-dissolve na lang natin to para we're still in line with what the Supreme Court said. Thank you, Mr. President.
Noted and entered into the records.
Mr. President,
Majority Leader.
next and last but not the least to interpolate the distinguished gentleman from Tarlac is the lady from Taguig and Pateros, no other than Senator Pia Cayetano. I move that she be recognized, Mr. President.
Senator Pia Cayetano is recognized for interjections and/or manifestation. You may proceed, ma'am, if the gentleman will so allow it.
Yes, Mr. President.
Thank you, Mr. President. With the permission of the proponent, Senator Marcoleta, I would like to
Yes, Mr. President.
make a few observations and then perhaps ask His Honor's opinion on these matters.
Please.
Thank you. So, Mr. President, I'm reading directly from the case Duterte versus House of Representatives. Page 95. It states, the subsequent filing of the articles of impeachment under Article 11, Section 3.4 against Vice President Sara Z. Duterte and its transmittal by the House of Representatives to the Senate of the 19th Congress is considered to be a separate and distinct mode of initiating the impeachment process. The articles of impeachment are declared barred by Article 11, Section 3.5 of the Constitution. Likewise, they are unconstitutional and are deemed null and void ab initio. Consequently, the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute itself into an impeachment court. This decision is immediately executory. It shall be deemed served on petitioner and release upon publication on the Supreme Court website and receipt of the parties of their digital copy in accordance with AM number 250516 SC, or the guidelines on the transition to electronic filing in the Supreme Court. So, I read this into the record, Mr. President, because I'd like to emphasize a few key phrases. The Senate did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute itself into an impeachment court. I'll start with that one, and then the second one is this decision is immediately executory. So, pag sinabing the Senate did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute itself into an impeachment court, and yet the fact remains that we did constitute ourselves into an impeachment court, then what are we supposed to do? Because the Supreme Court tells us that we did not acquire jurisdiction. As most lawyers, well, all lawyers should know, when the Supreme Court tells another body, usually it's the lower court or sometimes it's a government agency, and the case was by our accepted rules elevated to the Supreme Court. They tell them you have no jurisdiction. The only thing you do is what do they call it? There's a term. You have residual powers, and those residual powers basically simply allow you to dispose of the case as per instructions of the Supreme Court. Is that the understanding of His Honor?
Yes, Mr. President. Actually, residual powers apply also under Section 135. Yun po yung sinasabi ko kanina. Hindi ko po sinabi kanina na I am invoking that because the rules of court are there. Hindi po yun. Kasi legislative department po ang sinabi ko doon. Kasi wala pong applicable rules eh. Pwede po yun, ma'am, Mr. President.
Kasi ang akin po, and I've tried all my life to be a dutiful citizen, and Alan knows I was a good daughter, a better daughter than he was a son, in terms of following our father's rules. Pag sinabing, hindi mo pwedeng gawin yan, wala kang karapatan na gawin yan, hindi ko gagawin yon. At kung ginawa ko yon, babawiin ko. Kasi nga sinabi sa akin na wala akong karapatan na gawin yon. So, yun ho ang iniintindi ko. I am one of 5, tama bang bilang ko, 5 lawyers here in the Senate, and I'm trying to do my job as a senator and as a lawyer. I am trying to listen carefully to our colleagues who have expressed their desire to constitute ourselves as an impeachment court. But I do not know how we can legally do that when the Supreme Court tells us we did not acquire jurisdiction to constitute ourselves into an impeachment court. We did not acquire it then, and we do not acquire it now. So how would we do that? And those of you who've worked with me know how hard I work to find a solution. I bend over backwards, I listen, I redraft everything para masaya tayong lahat. And of course, within the bounds of the law. How do we do that? How?
Mr. President, I think the good senator already provided the answer. By using the Senate's residual power. Kung titignan po niyo yung definition ng residual power, hindi po talaga nakasulat yung power per se. Ngunit inherent sa opisina yon, kaya tinawag pong residual power. Nung sabihin po ng Korte Suprema, this is immediately executory, wala pong ibang departamento, walang ibang opisina ang tinitingnan niya kung tayo lamang. Kung hindi tayo gagalaw, wala pong iba na gagalaw. At mananatili pong nakahang ang isyong ito, Mr. President.
So, yun yung first point, Mr. President, that I wanted to raise, and thank you for your response, Senator from Tarlac. And then with respect to the second phrase that I wanted to dive into, immediately executory. So sinabi to dun sa desisyon, and then I think the Senate President mentioned it also, that in their press briefing just yesterday, the Supreme Court stated that to recall, on July 25, 2025, the Supreme Court granted the petition to dismiss the 4th impeachment complaint against Vice President Duterte. In a 13-02 decision with the justices present voting unanimously, and Associate Alfred Benjamin Kagiwa inhibiting, and Associate Justice Maria Filomena Singh on leave, the Supreme Court en banc ruled that the impeachment complaint was void for violating the 1-year ban and due process requirements. This decision is immediately executory. Inulit pa nila sa press briefing nila. So sa akin lang po, parang nahihirapan ako as a lawyer and a lawyer in the Senate to say that they did not intend it to be immediately executory, because they said this knowing that there already was a motion for recon, and knowing that we are going to have this discussion today because we made this date public, that on this day we will have this discussion. So again, I'm trying hard to see how, other than disposing of the case using our residual powers following the instructions of the Supreme Court, we can further debate this issue. That is my dilemma, dear colleagues, Mr. President.
May I offer an answer, Mr. President?
Of course.
Pasensya na po kayo kung gagamit po ako ng paghahalimbawa. Nung pong kayo po ay medyo bata-bata po, Madam Senator, meron pong lumigaw sigurado sa inyo. Yung
Huwag na
unang
ho
lumigaw
natin
sa inyo
pasukin yung
talagang...
diskusyon na yon. Hahaba ho ito. Mas mahaba po sa debate ng impeachment.
Ganito po yun eh. Tinapat nyo talaga. Ayaw nyo magtagal pa yun eh. At tama naman po yung ginawa ninyo. Ipinakita nyo sa kanya, pinaramdam nyo sa kanya talagang wala siyang maasahan kesa mapagod pa siya.
Sino ho
Pero ang
yun?
sabi niya sa inyo, ang sabi po niya sa inyo, pwede bang ako'y kahit papaano'y dadalaw-dalaw pa rin? Parang nag-MR. Nasa sayo yun, but that will not change my mind. Ganun din po yun eh. Ang Korte Suprema, sa ganitong, Mr. President, the very tenor of the decision, kahit na po sinabi niyang, oh sige, nasa sayo. Formality na lamang po yun, Mr. President. You are a trial lawyer too. Most of us here became trial lawyers. This is our experience. Huwag po nating pahirapan yun. Sana man lang kung ang decision po 8-7. Yun po pwede nating pagtalunan po eh. Wala po talaga eh, Mr. President.
If I may, Mr. President, and I think that was a good analogy. Thank you for that. Napaisip niyo ho ako doon. I think what's interesting with His Honor's analogy is there are people, there's the public, I don't know, millions of people would like to understand ano ba yung final na kasong yon, may evidence ba? And totoo yan, di ba? Hindi natin matatanggal yon. So in the same way, yung manliligaw na walang pag-asa, gusto din niyang malaman na ano ba yung chances, ano ba yung nangyari, bakit ba meron kang ganitong conclusion, can I convince you otherwise? I think that's what His Honor is trying to say. And I think the public really want to know. Let the record show na tawang-tawa po si Senator Bato sa likod. But and we really want to know, sino ba namang may ayaw malaman kung merong isang public official na akusahan ng katiwalian. Lahat po tayo interesado doon eh, whether mahal mo yung taong yon, whether galit ka sa taong yon, you want to know the truth. Kasi kung naniniwala ka na innocent yung taong yon, gusto mong mapatunayan niya na innocent siya. At kung galit ka sa taong yon, gusto mong mapatunayan na guilty siya, hindi ba? But meron tayong kinikilalang Supreme Court na nagsasabing hindi nga dumaan sa tamang proseso. So kumbaga siguro sa example nyo, baka hindi dumaan sa tatay ko, hindi nagpaalam ng maayos. Di wala naman akong choice, kundi sabihin na wala kang pag-asa. Baka naman may pag-asa, pero I have to follow the rules of my father's house na hindi dumaan sa tamang proseso. So doon ho tayo babalik, and as a lawyer, I have to say this na yun nga, we are governed by laws. And in as much as gusto ko rin malaman, bothered ho ako sa mga gantong akusasyon. The other day, our colleagues, merong privileged speech tungkol sa kalokohan dun sa paggagawa ng mga flood control. Gusto natin malaman, di ba? Ngayon, pagka yun na-discuss sa sa media, okay na, media siya. Pero walang papupuntahan yun kasi it should go to the proper process. May process yan sa halls of the Senate. We have hearings in aid of legislation, and then magre-recommend tayo na ma-ombudsman yan. So may proseso tayo.